This is 28th Massachusetts at Gettysburg, Part 9, here on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook, and I'm at the left flank marker of the 28th Massachusetts. And as we left off in our last video here, as they started to march up the Stony Hill, this is where the 28th Massachusetts, along with the Irish Brigade and the regiments in the Irish Brigade, pushed back the 3rd and the 7th South Carolina of Kershaw's brigade. We're going to walk up to the 28th Massachusetts monument now, so if you'll just follow me. Now, as the men made their way up this hill to the position where their monument was, the 3rd and 7th South Carolina Infantry retreated. They retreated up the hill and then turned to the left and started heading toward the Roche farm. So the 28th Massachusetts is placed in their line here. This is their monument, and next to their monument is their right flank marker. Their left flank is anchored here, their right flank here. Now the position of their line would be the 63rd, 69th, and 88th just down the hill, the 28th Massachusetts here, and then of course the 116th Pennsylvania, again, all part of that brigade, all on the brigade line. Kershaw's men, South Carolina, are now chased here, and they're at the apex of the crest of this hill. Now they're heading down the hill toward the Roche farm, and this is the high water mark of Patrick Kelly's Irish Brigade. This is where they begin to celebrate a victory. They had actually come across the bloody wheat field, up the hill, and pushed soldiers that were behind rocks back, which was a pretty amazing feat. In our next video, we're going to take a little bit of a look at the monument before then finding out exactly what happened that caused this small victory to become a failure. This has been the 28th Massachusetts at Gettysburg, Part 9 on Gettysburg. This is the 28th Massachusetts at Gettysburg, Part 10 here on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook, and we're sitting here at the monument for the 28th Massachusetts, and we're going to take a look at it. This monument is 13 feet 4 inches tall, and it was dedicated in the year of 1885. It's a four-sided monument. At the top of the monument, remember, these men were from Ireland, but they have the U.S. eagle at the top along with the U.S. crest. However, under that, they have a Gaelic saying called Fagabala, which meant clear the way. Now, one of the interesting facts about this monument was actually on a stop on March the 30th, 1963 by President John F. Kennedy. His tour guide, Jacob M. Sheeds, had actually stopped at this monument to the 28th Massachusetts and asked him if he knew what that meant, and he knew it and said, clear the way. Now, the men of the 28th Massachusetts, when they dedicated this monument to show their patriotism toward the United States, if you look at the font on the monument, it's all pretty much in the same typesetting, except for the date, July 2nd, 1863, and then the words American Union at the bottom, which are actually in bolder, larger font. So these men who were Irish immigrants had made this their country and were proud of their new country and actually made American Union. Now, around the rest of the monument, it has the symbols for Ireland, the Harp of Erin, and then of course on the back side over here it has the 2nd Corps infantry badge, and then the Harp of Erin on the side. Again, they were the 2nd Brigade, the 1st Division of the 2nd Corps, 212 as we like to call it, and they were led here at the Battle of Gettysburg by Colonel Robert Burns and under the command of the brigade commander, Colonel Patrick Kelly. This has been the 28th Massachusetts at Gettysburg, Part 10 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Okay, this is going to be the 28th Massachusetts at Gettysburg, Part 11 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. And we just took a look at the monument, and the men are celebrating this victory. They pushed these soldiers from South Carolina back toward the Roche farm in this direction. And everything is looking good. And then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose here on the Stony Hill. What has happened is Kershaw's men go back to the Roche farm, and they meet up with some other brigades, and they begin to reform. And now they're going to have a push back up the hill. But the biggest thing that happens at this point is General Barksdale begins to break through at the peach orchard over by the Sherfy farm, and Wolford and his Georgia boys break through. So now what's happening, Colonel Burns has his men with their backs facing the wheat field, concentrating on the South Carolina suit, and now on his right, there's a breakthrough by Confederate forces. So now they're going to be attacked on their left by Kershaw's again. They got Sims out here fighting, and now over here you got Barksdale's troops and Wolford's troops breaking through at the peach orchard. They're going to be surrounded, and Colonel Burns knows this, and instead of his men being captured and embarrassed, he decides to have an orderly retreat back through the wheat field. Now when they go back through the wheat field, they go back through the same area that they entered the wheat field on, all the way back up the lane and then back to Cemetery Ridge. On the evening of July 2nd, 1863, as they lay down at night and think about what happened during the day, it must have been a little bit demeaning to them for them to gain all this ground only to lose it and give it back up again. And on the night of the 2nd into the 3rd of July of 1863, they actually form in a single file line along Cemetery Ridge and build earthworks. Meanwhile, any of the wounded troops from the Irish Brigade, from the 28th Massachusetts, as well as anybody else who was engaged in the wheat field, these wounded men are left out in this wheat field suffering and dying during the night. The fences, as we talked about, that were broken down when these men entered the wheat field are no longer there, and wild hogs began to enter the wheat field, feeding on the dead and the dying soldiers. Many of the men that were in there that took diary accounts remembered the screams of men who were mortally wounded and could not fend for themselves and were being eaten by wild hogs, as well as the sickening sight of wild hogs feeding on the dead flesh of their comrade soldiers. This has been the 28th Massachusetts at Gettysburg, Part 11 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Okay, this is going to be the 28th Massachusetts at Gettysburg, Part 12, our final part here on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook and Gettysburg Battlefield Ultimate. And I'm standing here next to a friend, David Denton. And one of the reasons for this video series was a special request. David Denton is the great-great-great-grandson on his mother's side of a soldier that just took part in the action that we just explained in the last 2 hours of our video that we shot here regarding the 28th Massachusetts. Sergeant Francis Roche, he was actually a private during the Civil War. Francis Roche was born in 1837 in County Kerry, Ireland. And he died on August the 22nd, just in a couple of weeks, in 1879 in Lynn, Massachusetts. Now, he was the son of James Roche and Mary Mayhem. He immigrated to the United States sometime before his marriage to Anne Fitzpatrick on January the 8th, 1859 at St. Mary's Catholic Church in Lynn, Massachusetts. He had children. He was enlisted on December the 17th, 1861, and he was mustered into service on New Year's Eve of 1861. He was a shoemaker by trade in Massachusetts. He re-enlisted in the service on New Year's Day of 1864. He was wounded at the Battle of Spotsylvania, and he was promoted to sergeant after the surrender of Robert E. Lee on May the 25th, 1865, and finally being mustered out on June the 30th, 1865. He had 6 children. They were Mary Ann in 1860, Francis and James, twins, in 1862, Thomas H. in 61, Peter I. in 1866, Charles A. in 1867, and Nellie in 1870, and they attended the St. Mary's Catholic Church in Lynn, Massachusetts. Now, I did say he died on August the 22nd, 1879. I'm going to have David finish up here and tell you exactly what happened to him and how he died. And this was also in a newspaper, and I will also post a picture of the newspaper obituary as well.
Well, he became alcoholic at the end due to the war, and actually fell in a well and was drowned in the well. And they pulled him out of the well and tried to revive him, but it was too late. and he passed away from drowning.
So again, one of the sad things that you see over and over again about Civil War soldiers, and we always talk about lieutenants and colonels and heroes and this brigade commander, but it was the private soldier that restored the Union with the colors. The men who fought were the private soldiers, and back then they did not have treatment for depression or things that would be caused that we know about in the military today. So obviously this man had become an alcoholic, maybe because of his experiences in the American Civil War, to the point where he actually took to the bottle a little bit too much one day and he drowned in a well. It's a very sad ending that he survived the American Civil War and all the battles that this group was in. I do want to mention also that the Irish Brigade, the 28th Massachusetts, at the Battle of Gettysburg, carried a green flag with the Harp of Erin on it, and it didn't say 28th Massachusetts. It was the 4th Regiment of the Irish Brigade. It was a large green flag, and there is a great painting out there I highly recommend by Dale Gallen, which I'll post, of the 28th Massachusetts in the center of the line coming from the wheat field up to the Stony Hill. I hope you've enjoyed our presentation of the 28th Massachusetts here at Gettysburg. I do want to thank Patty and David Denton for their request for me to get inspired to do this, and also David for having the descendant here in the 28th Massachusetts here. Karen from the Gettysburg past and present group, Karen Harris, who's gracefully handled the notes that I really didn't need a lot to the end, but she's carried them around for me, and Patty also for being my filming person today, which has made this video all possible. This has been our presentation of the 28th Massachusetts at Gettysburg on Gettysburg Battlefield, Facebook, and Ultimate.